but in Cissy's case, society would have been aware of a major scandal. Cissy's grandmother, Sarah Dunn Gardner, a Fenland heiress in her own right, in 1807 married Lord Chartley, the eldest son of the Marquis Townshend of the day. A minor of 17 at the time, it appears that Sarah was forced into the union by her parents. Essentially, it was a marriage of convenience, joining money with aristocracy, but Sarah wanted romance as well. And there was another issue. She accused Lord Chartley of impotency and not being formed as a man should be.
The accusation was cited in the legal documents that were prepared for an annulment, Sarah's claim being that her marriage had never been consummated.
Not long after the wedding, a contemporary gossip columnist had written, "Lord Chartley is a very effeminate young man. Sometime he wore pink ribbons to his shoes, and having married a young lady only a few months ago, he is said to be upon the point of separation from her." But Sarah decided to take things into her own hands, and before the proceedings began, she eloped to Gretna Green with John Margetts, a brewer from St. Ives, whom she had met in her parents' house. Aside from Sarah's passion for John, she was following in the footsteps of her mother, Jane, who had eloped to Gretna Green in her day. But of course Sarah's marriage was a bigamous one, and when she and her lover fled north of the border to tie the knot, she was pregnant with her first child. Inevitably, the scandal leaked out into society. Even the king was known to have discussed it, and Chartley's father, the Marquis, disinherited his son, who fled the country and ended up living in Italy with his Italian male lover. Years later, a man who was employed by Chartley in England as his secretary, and claimed to be his confidant too, remembered, "His lordship was in such distress of mind about the peculiar charge made against him by Lady Leicester" Leicester was another Townshend title, "that he expressed his anxiety to submit to a personal examination." However, the secretary added, "I believe the result was favourable to Lady Leicester's contention." In 1811, on the death of his father, who was not able to prevent the title passing to his son, Chartley technically inherited the marquisate, and since he was not divorced from Sarah, she had the right to call herself Marchioness Townshend. However, if any of the servants used her title, she railed at them, "Never call me by that detestable name." In spite of her protests, though, all her children, having started life as Margetts, became Townsends through baptism in 1823, and the eldest son, John, started to call himself Earl of Leicester. This irregular setup continued until John became the elected MP for Bodmin, and as the supposed heir to a peer, he was now entitled to sit in the Lord's Chamber, on the steps of the throne. This was a step too far for the Marquis's real heir, his brother Charles, who sought to redress in 1842 by petitioning the House of Lords to declare all Sarah's children illegitimate. During the sensational case that followed, friends and staff were cross-questioned about the minutiae of the domestic arrangements between Sarah and Lord Chartley before the elopement with Margetts. Essentially, the testimonials from the witnesses were about one issue. Could Lord and Lady Chartley, as they were styled when they were married, ever have had sex? Had they ever been close enough, whether in the same room or country, for the possibility of that happening? The thousands of words uttered in the Lord's Chamber, and reported in lurid detail by the press, established that there was no possibility of sexual intercourse ever having taken place, and therefore all the children were by Margetts, and thus illegitimate. Lord Brougham, the famous QC and former Lord High Chancellor, who represented the Townshend family, was at pains not to apportion any blame to Sarah, or indeed to her eldest son. He blamed Margetts, as well as Sarah's father, for instigating